Okay, welcome everybody. We're going to get going. Welcome to the Breslov Book Club of Thornhill, Story of Our Lives edition. Boom. And we are on today, chapter 19, called Helpful Challenges. And there's a lot of awesome stuff in here. Shmuley is not able to join us tonight. Yirtzeh Hashem, we'll do our best without him. He gave me some information he wanted to give over. We'll see if it works out. Everybody should check us out. By the way, you should check us out if you haven't subscribed to our channel on YouTube yet. Like, you know, we're not one of those groups that's always like press the like button and subscribe and do this and do that, whatever. But we're today at 300. We're today at 399 subscribers. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay. Good. We're at 399 subscribers. We need one more. So someone go and subscribe to us on YouTube, and we'll have 400. That'll be exciting.
I'd like to be 400.
Go for it. Okay. Okay, and check out, you know, the usual things. lpitorah.org and awesome stuff. Okay, so let's see where we're at here. We're at a place in the story now where... Welcome, Vered. We're at a place in the story now where... The Viceroy who represents our inner searcher. And the Viceroy's been through a lot. And remember, the Viceroy is a moon person, like us. We're all moon people. And he's going through life, he's going through ups and downs. He's having some successes and then failures, and successes and failures. And despite that, he's searching on, and he's going on, right? The Viceroy does not give up his search. The Viceroy has seen the princess. The Viceroy knows there's a princess. And this represents the part inside us that knows that there's something more to our existence. Something more to life. There's something more to our existence. There's something we're searching for. And we know it's there. And we're on the path. And everybody who comes to our classes here and learns together with us is for sure one of these people. No question. So the Viceroy comes up onto a particularly difficult challenge this time. Let's read the part of the story that we're working on today. So this unusual person said to the Viceroy, the giant we're talking about. Remember, he encountered a giant carrying a tree. Last time we explained that this giant carrying a tree could represent a few different things, but it represents sun people in simplicity, which means those people who are not searching, who don't think there's anything else. There's nothing behind the veil. There's nothing deeper to find, right? It could be a certain type of rabbi who comes with carrying the Torah, a lot of knowledge, and knows the whole halacha backwards and forwards and the Chumash and the Gemara and everything, right? But they don't have any connection to the deeper aspect of Torah. And they think you're crazy for thinking about deeper things, right? But they're huge and powerful and respected, and they're carrying the whole Torah with them, right? Or it can be someone like a atheist who has a lot of scientific background and who will try to tell you, you know, you're what are you looking for? What are you, crazy? Don't you know? There's no proof. Here, look at all my science, right? By the way, there's plenty of people who have books on science going the other way, who use science to prove the existence of God to whatever extent they can, right? But anyway, it could be that type of person. But it's a sun person. It's someone who's telling you, you're wrong. What is wrong with you? What are you looking for? It's not there. This deep thing that you're looking for, this connection, this spirituality, it doesn't exist. Stop already, right? And they're big, strong, and they carry a lot of weight and a lot of respect, right? That's who the first giant is. So this giant says to him, but the Viceroy started crying and broke down and said to the giant, I know for sure it exists. For sure the princess exists. For sure this palace of pearls on the golden mountain exists. He says for sure, Bevadai yeshno sham. Did anyone listen to that song I posted, by the way? Oh my gosh, you got to hear this song. It's written by Akiva Turjuman, who's a popular Israeli singer, He wrote a whole song based on The Lost Princess. Like, it's a pop song. It's totally unbelievable. I posted it on the group. You got to go see it. It's really amazing. Anyway, he says for sure it's there, and he's crying. So this does something to the giant. And he says, Ladati hishtus. Okay. In my mind, really, what you're saying is silly already. Machmas shata mizakesh. But since you're stubborn, I am in charge of all of the wild animals in the world. I'll do something on your behalf here. I'll call all the animals. Because they run throughout the entire world. Maybe one of them knows about what you're looking for that I didn't see yet, the palace and the mountain. He called all the animals from small to big, all different species. And he asked them, and they all answered that they haven't seen it. It doesn't exist. So the giant said back to him, you see now, someone has been telling you stories. Someone's been telling you shtus, silliness, fantasies. Im tishma, shuv lacharech. If you're smart, you'll listen to me, and you'll turn back. Ki bevade lo timtza, because you're not going to find. Ki enenu ba'olam, because this thing you're looking for doesn't exist. V'hu hiftzir me'od. V'amar shebehechreach hu benimtza bevadai. But the viceroy says, no, he insists. And he says, no, for sure, what I'm looking for exists. For sure. Amar loy, hadam ha-meshuna la'sheni mach. So the giant said back to him again, Hine b'midbar nimtza sham achi. So go farther on in the desert, you'll find my brother. V'hu memuna al kol ha'oifos. He is in charge of all of the birds. V'ulai yodim hem. Maybe they'll know. Machmas she'em porchim ba'avir b'gvoya. Because they fly way up high in the sky. Ulai ro har umivtzar hana. Maybe they saw this mountain and palace where my animals couldn't see it. V'teilech elav v'toimer lai. So he went to him and he said to him, Shani shalachti oisecha elav. And so go to him and tell him that I sent you to him. Okay. So he went for a few more years searching for this brother. And so he found the second very great person. He is also carrying a tree canal like this one. And he asked him the same question. And he answered him the whole thing that his brother said back to him. The same answer. And he pushed him away also, saying that no, for sure this thing you're looking for doesn't exist. He also insisted, but the viceroy insisted again. Then this person said to him, Hine, okay, fine. I am in charge of all the birds. I'll call them. Maybe they know. And he asked each one of them from small to big. And they answered, none of them know about this mountain and palace. He said back to him, don't you see? It doesn't exist. It's not in this world. If you want to listen to me, turn back. Because it certainly doesn't exist. But the viceroy insisted and said, no, for sure, this thing exists. And that's the story that we're dealing with today. That's the part of the story that we're dealing with today. Okay, so let's get into it. There's some good stuff here. Okay, so he starts off, Rabbi Yaakov, by talking about moon people. Remember that the viceroy is a moon person. He represents really the ultimate moon person. The person whose life is a search and who's always waxing and waning, who's always become filled with light and then back down to darkness. But he's a searcher. And these two brothers that he meets in the desert, the giants, they represent the ultimate sun people, the ultimate person who tries to squash the hopes and the dreams and the spiritual striving of the moon person, right? So, but the Viceroy is not new to this at this point. He's been through a lot. He's gone up and down already. And through all those ups and downs, he's become very strong. The first lesson, I would say, he doesn't really spell it out so much, but is that one of the themes that I see in this, when he also doesn't spell it out so much, that I think about a lot about this, is that I find that people often find themselves in a difficult situation of ups and downs, and striving and trying and failing and trying and failing and growing, right? And they find themselves in a certain place where they say, like, I don't get it. Nothing's changing. Why is this happening to me? Why am I experiencing all these difficulties? And one of the things, people don't usually have the ability to hear it, but in the story, hopefully it wakes us up a little bit and we can hear it, is that you see, the only way, we should be blown away that at this point, this little viceroy is able to stand up against this giant who's carrying a tree, who commands all of the animals in the world, right? And he's telling him and showing him, look, all of my, I did all these internet searches for it. It doesn't exist. It's not there. I have drones flying the world, right? We've seen everything. It doesn't exist, right? It's amazing that he has the strength now at this point to stand up to this giant and to say, Bevadai yeshno sham. For sure it exists. I know it exists, right? The first lesson is don't ever think, we should chas v'shalom never think that when we're going through struggles, and it happens over and over again, that we should think that we're just spinning our wheels and nothing's being accomplished. This is a lesson we learned much earlier, right? When we found all of a sudden that the princess was no longer in the castle, even though the viceroy had failed, right? One of the lessons that we learned was that he thought that for that whole year that he spent longing and praying and fasting to get the princess out, that nothing had happened. But all of a sudden, the princess is no longer in the castle of the kingdom of evil. She's actually out and on her way to this golden palace, Pearl Palace, right? So we see that one of the important lessons is we don't always see the measurable accomplishments that we want, or that maybe our society has taught us is the way that we measure greatness or success. How much money do you have? These are all the 6 Sun things, right? How much money did you make, right? How far did you run in your marathon or whatever, right? What schools do your kids go to? Whatever these things people use to measure, right? We don't always have that. But God forbid we should think that all of that striving that we did and getting through difficult times was nothing. That is making me stronger and stronger and stronger. Till when I get to my next test, I'm going to be able to stand up to it. That's what's happening now. First point. So, one of the important midas that we're talking about over here is this midah of what's called in the Torah of Chassidus, Azus de Kedusha, which means holy brazenness. Azus de Kedusha, or another word that's used is akshanis, right, which is to be stubborn. So generally speaking, right, we always think that akshanis, being stubborn, is a bad trait, and many times it is a bad trait. Many times it is. Azus, to be az panim legehenim, right? The Mishnah says, right? Someone who's brazen goes to Gehenim. It's not a good trait, but there is something called azus de kedusha, using this trait for holy things. And we see that this is what the viceroy is displaying over here. Just think for a second. He says over here, and you can apply this to different parts of your life, right? But what if he didn't do this? What if the viceroy didn't have this midah of azus to kedusha right at the beginning, when he was standing outside of that palace of the Sitra Achra, right? The palace of the kingdom of evil. And he saw all the guards. There was all these guards surrounding it, right? And he was there, and what did he say? He said, I don't know what's going to be, but eilech va'anaseh. But I'm going to go and I'm going to try. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go and I'm going to try. That's the first time we saw the azus de kedusha of the viceroy. What if he didn't do that? That's the end of the story for him. Nothing else would have happened, right? think back to your life. Think back to your life when you're going through some difficult things. You know, when you tried to, you can think about this in like non-spiritual things even. You know, you wanted to apply for a program in school or something like that, a university program, something, and you had to go for an interview and, you know, try out or something, and you were very nervous, and you're like, thought, I'm not going to make it, and I'm so nervous, I'm going to fail in front of all these people, right? But you went ahead and did it, and maybe you got accepted to the program. Something like this in your life, right? Who knows what it could be? It could be marriage, the decision to get married. It could be the decision to have kids. Whatever it is, you made a big leap of strength. It was very difficult for you, right? And it shaped the entire rest of your life. And now imagine that you didn't have that inner fortitude at that time. You didn't have the strength to do that. None of that would have happened in your life. Where would you be now? Your life would be totally different. You have missed out on your whole existence that was really planned for you. I like to throw in something here that is, it's a little shocking sometimes. It's a little charif sometimes, but I'm going to say it anyway. In one of Rameh Arush's books, where he's talking about when people are trying to get married. They're trying to find a shidduch. And sometimes people go for many, many, many years without finding a shidduch. I'm not speaking about anyone in particular or judging anybody, right? It's difficult sometimes for people. But very often, people will be extremely picky, and it'll be very hard for them to go with anybody, to commit to anybody, because they're so picky because of their own real internal insecurities, right? So Arush quotes, I believe he's quoting Rav Chaim Kanievsky, if I remember correctly, who's the head of the non-Hasidic Torah world at the time. And he said, speaking about from him, that it's possible that a person could be put on a date and could be sitting across from their soulmate and could make the decision, it's not for me, and leave, and that's it, and miss the chance. Right? So why am I saying that? Not to freak anybody out, or not to not to make anybody feel bad, but we have all these opportunities in our lives, and many times when we don't do it, like you could also be sitting across from somebody who's a total putz, if I could say, right? Or who's like not for you, for sure. It's not meant for you, not a good person, right? And making the decision not to marry that person is obviously the right thing to do. But sometimes we make those decisions based on insecurities, based on fears, as opposed to based on doing it for purposes of Kedusha, and doing it because I've thought and I believe it's the right thing to do, right? Rather, I'm avoiding it. I'm procrastinating whatever it is that I'm doing because I'm afraid, or because I'm insecure, because I don't want to put myself out there and be a failure in front of many people, right? Whatever the reason is. So this idea of Eilech v'anaseh, I'm going to go and I'm going to try. I'm going for it. I'm going to try, right? Means to put aside those fears and insecurities. Always fear and insecurity comes from the side of the Sitra Achra, comes from the side of Klippa. It's not real. If our fear is not put in the right place in Hashem, then our fear is going to attach itself on all these other things. And I'm not going to move forward because I'm stuck here because I'm too afraid. Right? Total tumma and total klipa. So Reb Shmuley wanted to say this idea of Eilech v'anaseh, but he heard it from another idea from the Baal Shem Tov, where he uses the words kan v'achshav, here and now. Right? Meaning what? Meaning that we find ourselves in situations that are here and now. And very often we choose to avoid what's unfolding in front of us because of our fears. We're afraid of something, or whatever, the same fears. I'm afraid to put myself out there and be a failure. I'm afraid to open myself up and get hurt, whatever it might be, right? But if I'm doing that out of fear, it's the wrong thing, and I'm missing out on the opportunity of right now. Because when something comes in front of you, that means that Hashem put it in front of you. And there's a certain Eis Ratzon, there's a certain Eis Ratzon. It's like an auspicious time. It's like a good time. What's the word for Eis Ratzon? Right? Like it's auspicious is a good word. It's an auspicious time right now that this thing is put in front of you. Like now's the time. It's there. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave it to you. So, chaperein, right? Jump on it and do it as opposed to leaving it aside. If it's because of fears and because of insecurities. Obviously, we have to avoid things that are bad for us. And just because something is in front of us doesn't mean we go for it, right? But if it's really good for us and we're only avoiding it because of our own weaknesses and fears, then it's a big problem. So kan v'achshav, now's the time. Now's the time to do it. He said also, Shmuley also said, you can see it like if you're a husband and your wife asks you to do something, right? So what do many husbands want to say? Yeah, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. It's like, don't do it later. Do it now. Why are you waiting? Your wife asks you to do something, unless there's a really good reason, right? Unless there's a really good reason, just do it. Why? Because she asked you now. You have an opportunity to do something for her, to help her, to do a chesed. Do it now. Delaying it only detracts from the value of what you're doing and makes her feel like you don't care, right? Presumably it goes both ways, wife to husband also, somehow, I'm not sure. But for sure that way it goes. Whatever it is, right? It happened, just an interesting story. I think I told this story before. But you never know, you really never know. I have two great stories for this. Should I tell them? Maybe I'll tell them. I have two great stories for this. So there's, the first one is, I think I told this story before. So you guys know that I make wine, right? So my company bought a vineyard out in the middle of nowhere. I told you this story before. Totally the middle of nowhere. And no Jews around, like for miles and miles, and for hundreds of miles probably, right? It's in like Lincoln, which is sort of close to St. Catherine's. Anyway, so we're there, and there's a guy who lives in the house there, and on the vineyard, and he's renting. And so, whatever, I see the guy there. He looks like whatever he looks like. He has Jamaican roots, and so I see him around, and I see he's looking at me like he kind of wants to talk to me, and he's kind of walking around. So I decide, you know what, the guy's here. I'm gonna go and talk to this person. So I go and I say, hi. I'm from the representing the owners of this property. You're renting here. We should probably talk. And so I say to him, this Jamaican-looking guy, I say to him, what's your name? And he says, oh, my name is Nachshon. And I'm like, Nachshon? And he's like, yeah, it turns out, long story short, that Nachshon's Jewish, and he has roots, his family has ancient roots in Jamaica, and his father was part of the Chabad community here in Thornhill, close to us. Anyway, we became good friends, and the company bought tefillin for him, and he started putting on his tefillin. He already had a Kiddush cup and kosher wine and a menorah and everything. But what if I avoided this guy? What if I didn't do that? What if I just left him to the other people and didn't talk to him, right? Another story that I always have to tell about jumping at the time, right? Not letting the time pass by, is about my special friend, Rabbi Zale Newman. Right, Zale Newman, awesome guy. He's a businessman, but he really does a lot for the Jewish people, and he teaches classes, and he raises money for people, and he's just an amazing person. But he told this story about how he was at the village shul one year on Yom Kippur, I think, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and he would lead the services over there and explain things in a very nice way. And so one time, during the services, I think during the Torah reading, he would go around and talk to people and meet new people. So he went up to this one person. I've told this story a lot of times, but I love it. And he walked up to this one person and said to him, hi, my name is Zale. Good Yontif. And this guy looks at him and says to him, wow, you don't know what that means to me. And he said to him, do you know that I've been to a bunch of other synagogues in the area? And as I was walking into the synagogue today, I said to myself, this is the last time I'm ever setting foot into a synagogue. If someone doesn't say hi to me, doesn't talk to me, I'm never setting foot in a synagogue again. And Zayel, being Zayel, just went up and took advantage of it, took advantage of the time, and said hi to this person. And just the fact that he recognized him and said hi and spoke to him was a meshivas nefesh for him, like lifted him up, renewed him, right? So you never know who you're meeting, who you're seeing. Now is the time. Don't push it off. One tiny aspect of this Azus de Kedusha, right? In a small way, it's just not letting things pass by, right? Okay, but on a stronger way, let's get to the real Azus of this chapter, the real brazenness. So, I want to read a couple of passages from Likutei Moharan, the second chelik of Likutei Moharan, Torah Memches 48. It's a very, very, very special Torah. It starts off by saying, "K'sh'adam nichnas b'avodas Hashem," when a person enters into avodas Hashem, divine service. Azai haderech, then the way is shemarin lo hizrachakus, that he's shown distance. Hashem, it's like he's getting pushed away. V'nidme lo shemarchikin oisoi milamala, and it appears to him as if from upstairs in Shemayim they're pushing him away. Right? What's happening? So, a little bit farther. He sees that he's still full of coarseness and physicality, and bad thoughts and confusions. And any time he wants to do something holy, he's not able. It appears to him that Hashem's not even looking at him at all, and doesn't want him to be serving him. He's calling out to Hashem, and he's crying out to Hashem that he should help him in his avodah. He's still far away. It looks like he feels like Hashem doesn't even want him anymore. A little bit further. Vaklal ahuvi achi, and the principle is, my beloved brother and sisters, chazak ve'amatz me'od. You have to be very, very strong. Ve'echois atzmecha b'chol hakoychos l'shar kaim b'avodasecha, and grab all of your strength, all of your power to stand in your avodah, in your service to Hashem. And don't pay attention whatsoever to all this other stuff that's going on. If you feel that you're still far away, and you feel like you're still not doing the things you should be doing, you still have to know that a person like this, who feels that they're so low, every single little movement that a person pulls themselves a little bit away from negativity and puts themselves a little bit towards Hashem, those little things, it's tremendously great and precious to Hashem. Even the smallest little thing, I love this, that he separates himself from like materialism and goes towards Hashem. That movement, which is a tiny bit here, is like thousands of miles in the upper worlds. Tiny bit more. This is one of the most famous Rabbi Nachman statements. A person has to be tremendously stubborn in their avodas Hashem. Not to back down from their place. Even if you just started a little bit. You just started a little bit in avodas Hashem. You're trying to turn over a new leaf. You're trying to do some good things. Just make some good changes in your life, right? Whatever happens, and you fall back from that. Zchor davar zeh heitev. Remember this thing very, very well. Ki titzarech lezeh ma'od. Because you're going to really need this. Kshetaskel kitzas b'avodas Hashem. When you just begin in avodas Hashem. Ki tzarech hakshanas gadol me'od me'od liyos chazak ve'amitz lechois atzmai lamod al amdai. To strengthen yourself and stand strong and hold in your place. There's a whole Torah that Rabbi Nachman talks about this, and it gets very deep. And this is the midah that the Viceroy is displaying here right now, right? We know, guys, honestly, this is just, putting it very, very, very basically. This is our life's work. We know this is the most important thing we're going to do, is to look for a life of meaning and to try to accomplish meaningful things in our life, right? And since we know that it's also going to be where we face the most challenges. Because the way Hashem created the universe, I would say for better or for worse, but it's not, it's for better. We don't always get why it's for better, but it's for better. Those things that are the most holy and the most precious and the most important is where those negative forces come up the strongest. So we know it's going to be hard. And we know that if we're really making some headway, it's going to get hard and harder. Right? And that's just the way that it's got to be. And so this is what the Viceroy is teaching us. And we're seeing now that all these years of him strengthening himself and overcoming these things, now he's doing it. He's standing up. He's holding his place. There's a giant in front of him. A giant, mamish. And he is holding his place. It's totally amazing. Right? This is what he's accomplished up till now. Totally awesome. So, anyway. So we see that the giant... We'll move on to the next point over here. We see that the giant is telling him, what you're saying is stupid. It's dumb. But he says these words. Not despite the Viceroy's stubbornness, but because you are adamant about it, says the giant. Because you're stubborn about it, I'm going to help you. So even this guy, even this sun person, who's totally superficial, surface level person, and doesn't understand the search for spirituality and the search for deeper meaning in life, right? Something about the Viceroy's standing firm and crying, he's never seen such a thing before. That someone would be in tears because of such an idea. He's never seen someone so emistic, so truthful, so committed, right, to such a level that it actually breaks him a little bit. Okay, he's not becoming a moon person right away, right? But he says, you know what? Since I see that you're serious, basically, I see that you're committed. I see something in you. I'm going to help you, right? He wouldn't do that if he thought the person was totally crazy, right? If the person was an evil, terrible person, he wouldn't do such a thing. He taka sees something in him, something that strikes him. So he says, I'm going to call all my animals. And all the animals are going to come around and we'll ask them. So he helps him. So this, it also reminds me, by the way, of something that I don't remember who I heard this from, but I heard it many times from different people, that anti-Semitism, right? That you see that many times certain types of anti-Semites, they're not so... They don't come out so strong when they see a Jew who's strong, and a Jew who believes in himself, and a Jew who doesn't back down, right? Many times that's enough to shut people up. And when they see such a thing, they have a certain respect, and they don't whatever. Their anti-Semitism doesn't come out so strongly. It's another thing when a Jew is strong, when a Jew is powerful, right, and confident, and with emunah, and believes in Hashem, and believes in themselves. This is something that people see, and we can see the power in people. Awesome. Okay, let's move on to the next point. The next point, I think, is one of my favorite points. He brings it from the Piazetzner Rebbe, the Eish Kodesh, in his sefer called Hachsharas HaAvrechim. So he says like this. This is such a cool idea. It says like this. So we have these faculties, our five senses, right? We have the sense of sight, smell, taste, and touch, let's say, right? And really, These, whoever's coming to the Wednesday night class, by the way, the beginning of Torah 21 is all about this. That our eyes, nose, mouth, and ears are the things that we intake from the world into our soul. They're the what's the word I'm looking for? I use this word a few times. They're like the interface between the world and our soul, right? So our sense of sight and our sense of smell and taste and hearing, those are actually spiritual things that are occurring within us. But they have to have a physical vessel in order to use them. So if we didn't have eyes, our soul still has this power of sight, but there's no physical vessel for it to work in. Or if we have eyes, but we're stuck in pitch blackness, right? Our soul has the ability to see, right? But there's nothing physical to attach it to, so it doesn't come out. So too, if we had the ability to hear, but we were stuck out in outer space, where I'm told, I think this is true, that if you're in outer space, you can't hear anything because there's no air particles for the sound to flow through. So I'm told. If it's not true, then I apologize, but you get what I'm trying to say. Right? Maybe if you were, I don't know, you're hidden at the bottom of the ocean and you can't hear what's going on up top, right? So, okay, so your soul has the ability to hear, but it doesn't have the physicality to attach it to for you to be able to see the power of your soul in the physical world. You with me? So, as Dr. Rebbe, the Piazetzner said that the same thing applies with the other powers that our soul has. The power to grow spiritually. The power to be ma'avir al midosav. For a person to overcome their own bad traits, to overcome their bad situations, to overcome challenges, to overcome difficulties. That power is there in our soul, right? It's just like sight. It's a power that we have within our soul. But it only comes out, it only gets used, and only gets put into practice when we face challenges and difficulties. Yisurin, right? When we face those, that's when it really comes out of us. And if you think about it, it's so obvious, right? Like these things that happen that we have to go through, and we have to strengthen it, and we have to start to see a whole new perspective. We have to widen our perspective. We have to go from a place of katnus to a place of gadlus in our perspective. And we have to work on those spiritual muscles, and we have to see things in ourselves that we didn't know existed. It doesn't happen if everything's just going smoothly. We have to wake up and start on a path, and then when we start on that path, we'll see right away. This stuff is going to happen. We're going to be seeing challenges, and those are going to bring these things out from us, right? Yeah, I just had something in mind, and someone said something. I forgot what I was going to say. but oh yeah, what was that? So this is what happens, and if we don't have this experience, we won't. It won't come out of us. So, in other words, this is the place where we express and we bring out and we practice and we begin to see the real power that we have and the real ability that we have to grow and the ability that we have to actually be on this journey and to be successful in the journey. If we didn't face these challenges, we wouldn't see it in ourselves. We wouldn't see our own greatness. And I want to say that, I see this all the time. It's so I sometimes actually start to laugh, and it's bad. When I'll be talking to somebody and they'll be telling me about their struggles, and they've been telling me about their struggles for years, and they're working through them, and they're telling me these things like I don't see why am I going through this? What have I accomplished? Nothing's changed. I feel like I'm in the same place. You know how many people have said this to me? I feel like I'm in the same place and I'm the same person that I was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, right? And as I'm looking at this person, and I'm seeing them from the outside perspective. And I'm seeing all the amazing things that I know about them, and all the things that they changed, and all the ways that they grew over those 2 years that they don't really realize, right? I sometimes for sure start to smile. Hopefully I don't laugh. But I often tell people, I'm like, you have no idea. I see so clearly in you all this growth and all these amazing things that you've done, and all this change that you've made. Why? Because you went through all this difficulty, because you faced all these challenges, right? Not in spite of the challenges, but because of the challenges, right? Just like the thing we always like to say, it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. These are my opportunities to be able to grow and to be able to come out of my shell and to become who I'm supposed to become, right? Totally awesome. So he sends, this giant sends the viceroy over to his brother. His brother in the next part of the desert, who's in charge of the birds. So before we get to that, just one other idea with both of these giants is that, you see, this is something that we all feel and we all experience. I believe that Rabbi Nachman is telling us this just to give us chizuk. It's like as if he's giving us a hug a little bit. What happens over here? So he convinces the giant, and the giant says, okay, you know what, I see you're serious, so I'm going to call all my animals, and they go over the entire world, and they're going to bring back a message, and let's see. So the viceroy has some hope. It's like he's been working, right? He's been struggling, and he faced this big challenge of this giant, and it was a huge challenge. It's literally a giant challenge, right? And he stands up, and he sees what happens. Oh, the giant says, okay, fine, I'm going to help you. Not only that, I have more power than anyone you ever met before. I can search the entire world in 2 seconds for you. I'm helping you. And the viceroy thinks, wow, amazing. Look, I'm finally making some headway. And not only that, I got the biggest gift. Wow, now I'm on my way. And what happens there, right at that moment? It comes back, the report, sorry, we literally searched the entire world, and what you're looking for doesn't exist. But Dafka, that thing that seemed like he finally made it somewhere, and that thing that it seems like I finally accomplished something, this is going to be my tikkun. This is going to be the thing that helps me figure the whole thing out. Right? Dafka, that thing comes back and says, sorry, back to square one. Right? I don't know what else Rabbi Nachman could be telling us here, except that this happens. This is what we're going to experience. And we're going to go through it. And we're going to see it. And don't worry. It's supposed to happen. And it happened to me, says Rabbi Nachman. And it happened, he says over here, by the way, in the Likutei Moharan, he says, V'kol hanizkar le'el avar al kol hatzadikim. All of this stuff happened to all of the tzadikim. Kasher shemanu mipiyam beferish, like they said with their own mouths. That they had the same struggles, where they thought that they were alone and that Hashem wasn't helping them. The tzaddikim this happened to. Rabbi Nachman's telling us, don't worry, this is going to happen, and I'm going to be there with you. I've been there. The tzaddikim have been there. This is the path. When you're on the right path, this is going to happen. Do you want to say something, Sandra?
Oh, just on page 345 with the Gematria states, I think, you're not there.
Oh yeah, it's important.
Yeah, like that's an important point, I think.
Yeah. So Sandra's bringing up a good point, which is going on the thing that we were just saying right before this. But there's a principle in the Gemara. The Gemara says, "En HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba betrunya im abriyasav." Basically, loosely translated, it means Hashem's not a tyrant who's playing games with us. Right? He's not messing around with us. If he gives us something that's a difficult challenge, it's only because that aspect of our soul is going to be activated through this challenge. Once again, it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. This thing that I have to go through, whatever, maybe I don't know what it's going to be, but this is going to activate some power that I have within me that I'm going to be able to get further down my path. Right? Good one, Sandra. So this is what happens. So then, then this becomes like exponentiated, if that's a term, even if not, with the it is now, with the brother. He sends him to his brother, and his brother is in charge of all the birds. And his brother, who's in charge of all the birds, doesn't take so long to offer him help. So first of all, Rabbi Yaakov says over here that the first brother was in charge of all the animals, the chayas, the behemoths, right? That really represents a ground level, base, animalistic, lower level. That was the person he was. Okay, he was a big Talmud Chacham with the whole Torah in his hand, right? But he was a little bit still attached to the ground. He was very surface level, total sun person, right? Comes now to his brother. His brother is in charge of the birds. Birds are a lot lighter. They're a lot farther from the ground. They're up in the sky. They're a little bit more, sort of what we might think in the realm of the spiritual, the realm of the searcher. They're not so attached to the ground, right? And so this giant helps him quicker. He doesn't fight with him so much because he's already a little bit in that realm. The way Rabbi Yaakov explains it is, if we're looking at the giant as one of these big Talmidei Chachamim, who doesn't have, who's a sun person, who's not really in touch with spirituality, who's not in touch with the deeper side of Judaism. This guy, the second one, he's like a little bit into it, right? He's like a guy, he'll quote maybe, he says a few things like the Ramchal, a little Derech Hashem here, a little Kuzari over here, a little Rav Dessler maybe, right? But it hasn't become part of him yet. He hasn't brought that into his own soul, into his own search, right? But he's a little bit there. So when this giant comes up and tries to help him, it's the same situation again, but it's a little bit harder even, because he's got more hope this time. He sees that this person is a little bit more connected. Maybe this person is actually going to, just like the birds can see, they can see the tops of the mountains. They can go many other places that the animals can't. He has more hope. And even in this situation, his hopes are dashed. The same thing. But what does the viceroy do? He stands strong. No matter what he says, I know that this exists. I know that I'm looking for the right thing. And I'm not backing down. I'm not stopping. I'm not stopping. So this is really where we find ourselves now. And I would say that the main points of this chapter, and the main things to look towards from this chapter are two aspects really. Are the fact that we have to be able to look at our own journey. And I wrote down here that maybe we don't always see the type of progress that we expect to see. Right? Maybe we have in our mind a certain definition of what growth and progress is. And we don't see it happening. And so we can get really down on ourselves. But if we live with the words of Rabbi Nachman to help us, we know that every time we've been through something and we came out the other side, we know that we're stronger. And we know that there's going to be a time when we're going to face something that's a giant. And somehow, at that moment, all of that strength that we built up over all those ups and downs is gonna like come into us, and we're gonna be able to stand up strong against that challenge. It's like Rabbi Nachman also tells us that there's not a single prayer that we ever make that is wasted, that doesn't get to Hashem. Right? You think somebody's davening for years for something, for a salvation, for whatever it is, for money, for maybe to get married, maybe to have children, right? And they're trying and they're davening, and they can get depressed, saying, I've been davening so long. Like, what do you want from me? What more can I do? My prayers aren't working. He says, God forbid that your prayers aren't working. He says, if you pray enough, it will happen. How much does it have to be? You're not sure. But we see from Moshe Rabbeinu, we see this to be true, that by Parshas V'eschanan, it says V'eschanan al Hashem at that time. He davened to Hashem at that time. Gematria of 515. He said he davened 515 prayers that he should be able to get into Eretz Yisrael. And Hashem said, "Okay, no more. You can't pray anymore, because if you pray one more time for this, then I have to let you in. And it's not the right time for you to go in." Meaning what? It's not that he just needed one prayer to get in. It's that he had 515 prayers behind him. And this one prayer, if he would make it now, it would bring all those other prayers. They would all, the words he uses, that they all come together into you at that moment and make you the person that you're supposed to be. Right? So in the same way that we're seeing over here, our prayers, we have to know that every tefillah that we ever said, for whatever we're longing for, it's there. And every time we make a new tefillah, it adds and it builds. And at some point, we're going to experience a tremendous Yeshua, tremendous salvation, and it's gonna fill us with strength, and we're gonna feel the kedusha of all those tefillahs that we made come into us, and that thing happens, right? And it may take a couple weeks, but it may take months, and it may take years, and like the story tells us here, it may take even more than that. It may take a long time. But this is one of my favorite lessons from this chapter. Right, is that we can't, God forbid, devalue all of those steps that we're taking. And we should look outside of ourselves to be able to see that we've really become much stronger. We've really grown, right? And we have to find the ways to see ourselves, to see how we've grown, as opposed to the goggles that society has tried to tell us are the goggles of growth, right? The measurable principles of growth. Mirz Hashem, we'll be able to see it. And the second most important part that we said, I think, is this, that the power is there within us, right? And the challenges that we face are not there, for us to get through, and in spite of them, we'll still become something great. It's the opposite. It's those challenges that are there specifically to activate that power in my soul. That special power, ability that I have to be able to do what needs to be done in this situation that no one else can do. No one else can do it for me, right? Those challenges are there to mamish show me what I'm really made of, to show me what my strengths really are, right? And it's funny. I said a funny reference this past Shabbos, but remember the story of the Lion King, right? So I said this over on Shabbos. It was kind of funny, but it applies really, really here. The story of the Lion King, right? So you have this little cute lion. His name is Simba, right? And his father is Mufasa, the big gigantic lion, and his evil brother is Scar. You with me on this? Has everybody seen the Lion King? Yeah, yeah. Okay. Thumbs up. So what happens is he finds himself out in this difficult situation, the little Simba, and it's a deadly situation, and he's trying to roar to scare away the bad guy, right? And little baby lion, he tries to roar, and a little comes out, right? And he's a cute little baby boy lion, and he has a cute little roar. Then he tries one more time, and as he tries to roar, this gigantic, powerful, deep lion roar comes out and scares away all the bad guys. I think they were hyenas, if I remember correctly, right? And that was the power of a big, full-grown lion. So later on in his life, when he comes back to reclaim the throne in the Lion King, right? He's been off the derech for a long time, and he's just been leading a hedonistic life, right? So he comes back. He comes back after his time with those two guys. Yeah. What are they called? The Hakuna Matata Chevra. And he comes back, and he stands up at this one point where the bad guy lion is there, his uncle, and he stands up, and he, with confidence, finally makes this tremendous roar, and everyone who hears it realizes that he's the real king, right? But it's like he didn't know that he had it in him until he was in that situation, right? If he would have stayed Hakuna Matataing his whole life, right? He would have just been singing nice songs with his pretty little voice. But when he had to finally be, this is Lion King Torah here. But when he finally had to be in that situation where it was like now or never, and he had to depose the evil ruler, right, Scar, that he really had to become. He had to dig deep and find out who he really was. But it never would have happened if he would have stayed in Hakuna Matata land all the time, right? So too, that's what we're seeing in our own lives. It's because of the difficulties that we face and the challenges that we have to go through that really begins to show us who we are and what our real power is. So we should look for that when we go through challenges. We should look for it and try to find. Rabbi Nachman tells us we always got to be looking for our good points. We can't get down on ourselves. We can't be depressed about ourselves. Even when we're in challenges, we should look in that time to try and see, what am I doing now? What powers am I displaying that I didn't have before? What am I able to see about myself? It's Hashem. Okay, we have only a few more chapters left, by the way, guys. So we'll continue next week with chapter 20. And are there any questions or comments? Yeah, we got 2 in person here, but okay, let's go. Vered first. Yeah.
Okay, so you said earlier that you gave the example of somebody dating, and you have, possibly the right person in front of you.
Yeah.
That could be your soulmate, and you're passing on them.
Yeah.
But isn't it true that what's meant for you will always be there for you, and it'll come back, or is it that God says, okay, you didn't appreciate what you had, I'm going to take it from you? Like, what? How does that work? Because we can make mistakes. We're only human,
Yeah.
right? I think it depends. So,
Right. That's a great question. So I think that's actually exactly what the definition of Eis Ratzon is, and why it's important to not push things off, right? Because this is the time when Hashem put this thing in front of you. It's the time right now. Now you can grab a hold of it, and now you can keep on the path that Hashem is trying to put in front of you. You can follow Ratzon Hashem, right? But if you choose to ignore it and you choose to follow Ratzon Mi, so it's going to take you off that path, and you're going to find yourself having to maybe you will come back to that person, right? In this situation that we're making up here, to try and understand someone. Maybe you will come back to them, but it's not going to be easy now. It's going to be much more difficult. And if that does happen, then it would have been meant for you to experience that because you weren't ready for it in the first place. You would have had to have gone through it. Whatever way it happens is the way it's meant to happen, right? But if we can be conscious of trying to be riding the wave of Ratzon Hashem, we can be more open to what's in front of us, first of all, and also remember not to see things that come in front of us and be pushed away from them because of our own insecurities and fears, right? And stay on that wave. This is exactly, how I always use this riding the wave of Ratzon Hashem? You're on the wave, right? You're riding the wave. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And Hashem puts this person right in front of you because you're on the wave. But now, if you pull back because of fear, because of Yirus Nefulos, fallen fear, you're off the wave now, right? You're falling back. You're no longer on that wave of Ratzon Hashem. So you're going to have to try to get back on, and back with the program. Really, is the way that I understand it. You hear what I'm saying?
yeah, no, but okay. So whether it's a person, a job, but whatever it is, what if you're wanting to see that it's what Hashem wants for you, like you're willing it to be, but it's really not?
That's what I'm saying. If it's not being held back by bad midos, by klipas, by negativity, by fear, by whatever, like you could have someone in front of you, and if you're doing the right thing, and you're in the right spiritual state, so then you'll either say yes or it won't be the right person. It'll be the wrong person for you.
Test or a blessing.
Right. Yeah, exactly right.
That's what you tell me.
It's 2 things, right? It's either a test or a blessing. That's the 2 things that it can be. Either I'm not supposed to go down this path and it's a test and I have to stay away from it, or I'm supposed to go down this path and it's going to be a huge blessing for me. Right? But so how do I do it, guys? How do I try to be in that state? I have to follow the advice. I have to follow Rabbi Nachman's advice. I have to do hispoidedus. I have to have people to talk to for advice. I have to follow what he tells me to do. He's giving me, Rabbi Nachman is like the master psychologist, remember? And the master spiritual guide. He's giving us what we need. But if we don't do it, we won't be prepared. If you're not working through things in your mind, if you're not doing a cheshbon, a nefesh every day, if you're not talking to Hashem every day and trying to figure out and be in that state of clarity every day, so then you're right. It's too difficult. But if you find yourself in that state, then things become much clearer and the decision is much more easy to make. It's all everything that we talk about, the thing I like to say is that all of these things that we get, these pieces of advice, they're all tools. And the tools help to put us into the right path. So if I use those tools, I'm going to be on the right path. If I don't use those tools, it's going to be very difficult. That's the truth.
I guess it's the second guessing part that's like hard. Right?
Sometimes, yeah. And the second guessing usually comes from fears and usually from not being able to be present in the moment. You know, I'm connecting it to things in the past, or I'm worried about what's going to be in the future with this person, right? And I'm in all those negative places. I'm everywhere except for right now, in the moment, seeing the person in front of me, or the situation in front of me, or whatever's happening in front of me, right? Listen, it's not easy, but this is it. If I'm telling you, I believe 100%, and I've experienced this so many times in my life. If you put these things into place, then life is completely different, right? It's like Rabbi Arush used to say about his book in Garden of Emunah. He said that there's a life before you read it, and there's a life after you read it. Okay, maybe it doesn't stay with you, and you have to go back and read again, right? But there's a way to live before putting Rabbi Nachman's advice into place, and there's a way to live afterwards, and it's a totally different place. He said, by the way, the reason he called it in the Garden of Emunah, because when you have Emunah and you really are living in that way, Gan Emunah, it's like you're living in Gan Eden. It's a different existence, right? So we got to try, and we got to support each other also. We got to talk about these things when they're difficult, and get chizuk and strength and support from your friends and your mentors and whatnot. Okay, everybody, have an awesome week, and we'll see you next Monday, and we'll be on Mitzvah Hashem this week, Wednesday, for Likutei Moharan too. Everybody have a great time. Love you guys. Bye bye.